On the war-torn planet of Xandar, General Tarkus oversaw the rigorous training of his elite soldiers. With his imposing stature and merciless reputation, he commanded the unwavering loyalty of his troops. As he paced through the sprawling training grounds, Tarkus observed the cadets with a critical eye. They moved with precision, their alien features etched with concentration. The general nodded approvingly, his mandibles clicking in satisfaction. These were the finest warriors in his legion, unquestioning, unflinching, and unbreakable. Suddenly, Tarkus' gaze fell upon a figure that stood out from the rest. Amidst the sea of towering, muscular soldiers, there was one cadet who seemed almost comically small and slight. The general's brow furrowed as he approached the young alien, his footsteps thundering across the packed earth. "You there?" Tarkus growled, his deep voice reverberating through the training yard. "What is your designation?" The cadet snapped to attention, his eyes meeting the general's with unwavering focus. "Cadet Rin, sir," he replied, his tone steady and clear. Tarkus scoffed, his lip curling in disdain. "Rin, I was not aware we allowed hatchlings to join my legion." He turned to the surrounding soldiers, who watched the exchange with thinly veiled unease. "Look at this one, barely tall enough to hold a weapon, let alone wield it in battle." The other cadets shifted nervously, avoiding Tarkus' piercing gaze. They knew better than to challenge the general's words, no matter how cruel they might be. Cadet Rin, however, remained unflinching. "Sir, I assure you I am more than capable of." "Silence!" Tarkus roared, his massive hand shooting out to grasp the cadet by the front of his uniform. Lifting him effortlessly, the general brought Rin's face close to his own, his breath hot and menacing. "You will speak only when spoken to, hatchling. Your kind may have survived this long, but you are still weak, unfit to stand amongst my warriors." Rin swallowed hard, his heart pounding in his chest, but he refused to show any sign of fear. He knew that to do so would only invite further abuse from the merciless general. Tarkus held him there for a long moment, his piercing gaze searching Rin's face for any sign of weakness. Then, with a contemptuous snort, he hurled the cadet to the ground, sending him sprawling at the feet of the other soldiers. "Get this, creature, out of my sight," the general growled, his lip curling in disgust. "It is an insult to the very idea of a warrior." As the other cadets rushed to obey, Rin slowly picked himself up, brushing the dirt from his uniform. He met Tarkus' gaze, his eyes burning with a quiet determination that belied his small stature. In that moment, the general felt a twinge of unease. There was something in the cadet's unwavering stare that unsettled him, though he could not quite put his finger on what it was. Dismissing the feeling, Tarkus turned on his heel and strode away, his mind already focused on the next phase of the training regimen. Little did he know that this chance encounter would set in motion a chain of events that would challenge everything he thought he knew about strength, power, and the true nature of a warrior. The days that followed were tense and uneasy for Cadet Rin. The other soldiers, cowed by General Tarkus' public display of disdain, now regarded the small cadet with a mixture of pity and suspicion. They whispered behind his back, questioning how one so scrawny and unremarkable had managed to earn a place among their ranks. Rin bore their thinly veiled scorn with quiet dignity. He knew that in order to prove himself, he would need to demonstrate his abilities on the battlefield, and that opportunity would come sooner than he expected. One morning, as the cadets assembled for their daily training regimen, Tarkus strode to the center of the training yard, his imposing presence commanding the attention of all present. "Listen up, maggots," the general bellowed, his deep voice cutting through the murmur of activity. "Today, we will be conducting combat evaluations. I want to see which of you pathetic excuses for warriors are truly ready to face our enemies." The cadets straightened instinctively, their expressions hardening with determination. They knew better than to show any sign of weakness in front of their ruthless commander. Tarkus' gaze swept over the assembled soldiers, his eyes narrowing as they landed on Rin. A cruel smile spread across his features, his mandibles clicking in amusement. "And you, hatchling," he said, pointing a thick, clawed finger at the small cadet. "You will be the first to demonstrate your skills." Rin felt the weight of the other soldier's eyes upon him as he stepped forward, his heart pounding in his chest. He knew that this was his chance to prove himself, but the thought of facing one of Tarkus' seasoned warriors in combat filled him with a mixture of trepidation and determination. "You will face Cadet Thrawn," the general announced, gesturing to a hulking, muscle-bound alien who stepped forward with a confident swagger. "Let us see if you have the strength to even lift a weapon, much less wield it in battle." The other cadets murmured in anticipation, eagerly awaiting the inevitable display of the small cadet's humiliation. Rin and Thrawn took their positions, the latter towering over the former like a mountain over a molehill. Thrawn brandished his weapon, a heavy, serrated blade that glinted menacingly in the sunlight. Rin, in contrast, held a slender, unassuming dagger, its edge honed to a razor's sharpness. Tarkus watched the pair with a sneer, his arms crossed over his broad chest. "Begin," he commanded, the single word ringing out like a death knell. Thrawn wasted no time, launching himself at Rin with a furious roar. The cadet's massive frame collided with the smaller soldier, and for a moment, it seemed as though the battle had already been decided. But Rin was faster than anyone had anticipated. With lightning-quick reflexes, he danced aside, avoiding Thrawn's clumsy onslaught. The larger cadet stumbled, momentarily thrown off balance, and Rin seized the opportunity. Darting in, the small soldier struck with precision, his dagger flashing as he landed a series of rapid blows. Thrawn grunted in pain, his bulky frame unable to keep up with Rin's nimble movements. The other cadets watched in stunned silence, their eyes wide with disbelief. Tarkus, too, was transfixed, his arms falling limply to his sides as he observed the unexpected turn of events. Sensing an opening, Rin feinted to the left, then struck with devastating force, his dagger slicing cleanly through the straps of Thrawn's body armor. The heavy plate clattered to the ground, leaving the larger cadet vulnerable. Thrawn roared in rage, swinging his blade in a wild, desperate arc. But Rin was already moving, his lithe form darting in and out of Thrawn's reach. With a final surge of speed, the small cadet landed a devastating blow, his dagger slicing across the larger cadet's throat. Thrawn gurgled, his eyes widening in shock as he staggered and fell, his weapon clattering to the ground. Rin stood over him, his chest heaving, but his gaze unwavering. The training yard was utterly silent, save for the sound of Thrawn's labored breathing. The other cadets stared at Rin, their expressions a mix of awe and disbelief. Tarkus, too, was stunned, his mandibles working as he struggled to comprehend what he had just witnessed. After a long, tense moment, the general stepped forward, his heavy footsteps breaking the eerie stillness. "How?" Tarkus began, his deep voice barely above a whisper. "How did you do that, hatchling?" Rin straightened, meeting the general's gaze without flinching. "I have been trained in the art of combat, sir," he replied, his tone calm and measured. "My size may be small, but my skills are not." Tarkus regarded the cadet with a newfound sense of respect, his initial disdain beginning to give way to a growing curiosity. There was something about this small, unassuming soldier that intrigued him, a spark of something that he had not seen in any of his other warriors. "Then perhaps," the general said, his eyes narrowing thoughtfully, "you are worthy of a closer inspection." Rin nodded, understanding the weight of Tarkus' words. He had managed to survive the general's first test, but he knew that greater challenges lay ahead. As the other cadets whispered and murmured around him, the small soldier steeled himself, ready to face whatever the future might hold. The news of Cadet Rin's stunning victory over the larger and more experienced Thrawn spread quickly through the ranks of Tarkus' legion. The other soldiers, who had previously dismissed the small cadet as a weak and unlikely recruit, now eyed him with a mixture of awe and unease. Rin, for his part, carried himself with a quiet confidence, unfazed by the newfound attention. He knew that his true test lay ahead, in the form of Tarkus himself. The general, his curiosity piqued, summoned Rin to his private quarters, intent on getting to the bottom of the cadet's unexpected skills. Rin entered the dimly lit chamber with a measure of trepidation, but his steps were steady and his gaze unwavering. Tarkus, seated behind a massive desk, regarded the young soldier with a piercing stare, his mandibles clicking softly. "You have impressed me, hatchling," the general rumbled, his deep voice echoing through the room. "Your performance in the training yard was unexpected." Rin inclined his head respectfully. "Thank you, sir. I have trained long and hard to hone my skills." Tarkus leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. "And where, exactly, did you receive this training?" he asked, his tone laced with suspicion. "I am not aware of any of my soldiers possessing such unique abilities." Rin took a deep breath, knowing that the time had come to reveal his true identity. "I am not one of your soldiers, sir," he said calmly. "I am a human." The general's eyes widened, his mandibles parting in a shocked expression. "A human," he growled, his massive fist slamming down on the desk, causing the surface to tremble. "Impossible. Humans are weak, inferior creatures. How dare you infiltrate my legion?" Rin held up a placating hand, knowing that he needed to tread carefully. "I assure you, sir, I mean no disrespect. I was sent here by my own people to learn more about your civilization and its military might." Tarkus narrowed his eyes, his suspicion not yet assuaged. "And why should I believe you, hatchling?" he demanded. "What proof do you have of your claim?" Rin reached into his uniform, withdrawing a small metallic device. "This," he said, activating the device to reveal a series of holographic images, "is a communication device from my homeworld. It contains detailed information about human technology and culture." The general leaned forward, his gaze fixed on the holographic display. For a long moment, he was silent, his expression unreadable as he examined the images. Finally, he spoke, his voice low and contemplative. "I have heard tales of the humans, but I have never before encountered one of your kind in person." He fixed Rin with a piercing stare. "You are different from what I expected." Rin nodded, sensing an opportunity to bridge the gap between their two vastly different cultures. "Humans are a diverse and resilient species, sir. We may not possess the same physical attributes as your kind, but we make up for it with our ingenuity and adaptability." Tarkus considered this, his mandibles clicking thoughtfully. "So it would seem," he murmured, his gaze flicking back to the holographic display. "And you say your people sent you here to learn about us?" "That is correct," Rin replied, carefully watching the general's reaction. "We are a curious and inquisitive species, always eager to expand our knowledge and understanding of the galaxy." Tarkus was silent for a moment, his brow furrowed in contemplation. Then, slowly, a smile spread across his features, revealing rows of sharp, gleaming teeth. "Then perhaps," he said, his deep voice tinged with a newfound respect, "you have more to offer my legion than I had initially believed." Rin felt a surge of hope, realizing that his gamble had paid off. By revealing his true identity, he had managed to pique the general's interest, and perhaps even earn a measure of his trust. "I am honored by your offers, sir," Rin said, inclining his head once more. "I look forward to learning more about your people and your ways of war." Tarkus nodded, his expression thoughtful. "So be it, hatchling," he rumbled. "From this day forward, you will be known as Cadet Rin, and you will be given the opportunity to prove your worth alongside my finest warriors." As Rin left the general's quarters, he couldn't help but feel a sense of cautious optimism. He knew that he had taken a significant risk in revealing his true identity, but the potential rewards were immense. With Tarkus' grudging acceptance, he now had a chance to gain valuable intel and forge an unlikely alliance between the human and alien civilizations. The path ahead was uncertain, but Rin was determined to navigate it with the same skill and determination that had earned him Tarkus' respect. In the days that followed Cadet Rin's stunning display of skill, The young human quickly gained a reputation among Tarkus' elite legion. The other soldiers, once dismissive of his small stature, now eyed him with a mixture of awe and grudging respect. Rin, for his part, carried himself with a quiet confidence, his focus laser-sharp as he immersed himself in the rigorous training regimen. He excelled at every task, mastering alien combat techniques and weapons with ease, leaving his fellow cadets both impressed and uneasy. Tarkus, the gruff and uncompromising general, watched Rin's progress with a keen, calculating gaze. The human's abilities had initially caught him off guard, but now the general found himself increasingly intrigued by this unexpected recruit. One day, as the training session drew to a close, Tarkus summoned Rin to his private quarters. The young cadet, unsure of what to expect, followed the general's towering form, his mind racing with possibilities. Rin entered the dimly lit chamber, his senses immediately on alert. Tarkus stood before a massive window, his back to the cadet as he gazed out at the barren, war-torn landscape beyond. "You have impressed me, Rin," the general rumbled, his deep voice filling the room. "Your skills are indeed formidable, and your dedication to your training is unparalleled." Rin inclined his head respectfully. "Thank you, sir. I have simply done what is required of me." Tarkus turned to face the cadet, his eyes gleaming with an emotion that Rin could not quite identify. "And what if I were to tell you," the general said, "that your efforts could be rewarded with more than just the respect of your fellow soldiers?" Rin felt a twinge of unease, his mind quickly weighing the potential implications of Tarkus' words. "I am not sure I understand, sir," he replied cautiously. The general stepped closer, his towering presence casting a long shadow over the young cadet. "I am offering you a chance to join my elite unit, Rin," he said, his voice low and intense. "With your skills and my guidance, you could rise to a position of power and influence within my legion." Rin's eyes widened slightly, his mind racing as he considered the gravity of the general's offer. To be part of Tarkus' elite unit would undoubtedly open doors and grant him access to invaluable intel. It was an opportunity that he could scarcely have imagined when he first stepped foot on this alien world. But the young cadet also knew that Tarkus' reputation for ruthlessness was well earned. The general's dark reputation preceded him, and Rin was keenly aware of the potential dangers that came with aligning himself so closely with such a powerful and unforgiving leader. "I am honored by your offer, sir," Rin said carefully, weighing his words. "But I must confess, I am unsure of the implications. Joining your elite unit would be a great responsibility, and I would need to carefully consider the consequences." Tarkus regarded the cadet with a calculating gaze, his mandibles clicking softly. "Consequences," he rumbled, his tone laced with a hint of amusement. "There are no consequences for those who serve at my side, Rin. Only power, and the opportunity to shape the very course of this war." The general stepped closer, his imposing presence looming over the young cadet. "Think of what you could accomplish, hatchling," he said, his voice a low, persuasive purr. "With my guidance and the resources of my legion, you could become a force to be reckoned with, not just among your own kind, but throughout the galaxy." Rin swallowed hard, his mind racing as he considered the weight of Tarkus' offer. The promise of power and influence was undeniably tempting, and the potential to gather intelligence for his people was undoubtedly valuable. But the young cadet also knew that he could not afford to let his guard down, not when dealing with a figure as ruthless and cunning as the general. Taking a deep breath, Rin met Tarkus' piercing gaze with a look of quiet determination. "I appreciate your offers, sir," he said, his voice steady, "and I will consider it carefully. But I must ask, what price would I be expected to pay for such power and influence?" Tarkus regarded the cadet for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then, slowly, a smile spread across his features, revealing rows of sharp, gleaming teeth. "A wise question, hatchling," the general rumbled. "We shall see in time if you have the mettle to truly earn your place at my side." As Rin left Tarkus' quarters, his mind was a whirlwind of uncertainty and apprehension. The general's offer was undoubtedly tempting, but the young cadet knew that he would have to tread carefully, lest he find himself trapped in a web of Tarkus' own making. As Rin left Tarkus' quarters, his mind was a whirlwind of uncertainty and apprehension. The general's offer was undoubtedly tempting, but the young cadet knew that he would have to tread carefully, lest he find himself trapped in a web of Tarkus' own making. The path ahead was fraught with danger, but Rin was determined to navigate it with the same skill and cunning that had earned him Tarkus' respect. He would need to choose his steps wisely, for the stakes had never been higher. In the weeks that followed Tarkus' offer, Cadet Rin immersed himself in his training with renewed vigor. The general's promise of power and influence had ignited a spark within the young human, driving him to push the limits of his abilities. Under Tarkus' watchful gaze, Rin excelled at every challenge, mastering alien combat techniques and technology with a speed that left his fellow cadets in awe. The other soldiers, once wary of the small cadet, now regarded him with a mix of respect and envy, their whispers of doubt giving way to reluctant admiration. Tarkus, for his part, observed Rin's progress with a keen, calculating eye. The general's initial skepticism had long since given way to a growing sense of fascination, and he found himself increasingly drawn to the young cadet's unwavering determination and adaptability. As Rin's skills continued to impress, the whispers of his achievements began to spread beyond the confines of Tarkus Legion. Other alien generals, hearing tales of the human cadet's prowess, grew uneasy, their own egos threatened by the prospect of a newcomer gaining such favor in the eyes of the revered commander. One day, as Rin was completing a rigorous training exercise, Tarkus summoned him to his private quarters. The young cadet, his heart pounding with a mixture of anticipation and trepidation, quickly made his way to the general's chambers. Rin entered the dimly lit room, his senses instantly on alert. Tarkus stood before him, his massive frame silhouetted against the window, his expression unreadable. "Cadet Rin," the general rumbled, his deep voice cutting through the silence. "Your progress has been remarkable." Rin inclined his head respectfully. "Thank you, sir. I have merely done what is expected of me." Tarkus turned to face the young cadet, his eyes narrowing. "Expected?" he echoed, a hint of amusement in his tone. "No, hatchling. You have exceeded all expectations. Your skills are unparalleled, even among my most seasoned warriors." Rin felt a twinge of unease, aware that the general's words held a deeper meaning. "I am grateful for your praise, sir," he said carefully. "But I sense there is more you wish to discuss with me." Tarkus nodded, his mandibles clicking softly. "Indeed there is." He stepped closer, his towering presence casting a long shadow over the young cadet. "I have a task for you, Rin, one that will test the limits of your abilities and prove your worth to my legion." Rin felt a surge of apprehension, but he held the general's gaze with unwavering focus. "I am ready, sir," he replied, his voice steady. Tarkus smiled, his sharp teeth gleaming in the dim light. "I had a feeling you would say that." He turned and strode to his desk, retrieving a data pad and handing it to the cadet. "This mission will require you to venture deep into enemy territory, alone, and retrieve a critical piece of intelligence." Rin studied the data pad, his eyes quickly scanning the information it contained. This is highly sensitive information, sir," he murmured, his brow furrowing in concern. "Indeed," Tarkus rumbled, "which is why I have chosen you, Rin. I know you have the skills and the cunning to succeed where others have failed." The young cadet's mind raced, weighing the risks and potential rewards of the mission. He knew that this was a pivotal moment, a chance to prove his worth not just to Tarkus, but to the entire Legion. Failure would not be an option. "I understand, sir," Rin said, his voice firm. "I will not let you down." Tarkus nodded, a glimmer of approval in his eyes. "See that you don't, hatchling. The future of my legion may very well rest on your shoulders." As Rin left the general's quarters, he couldn't help but feel the weight of the responsibility that had been thrust upon him. The stakes had never been higher, and the risks had never been greater. But the young cadet was determined to succeed, no matter the cost. He knew that this was his chance to solidify his place within Tarkus' elite unit, to earn the respect and trust of the revered general. And if he played his cards right, he might just uncover the valuable intel his people so desperately needed. With a deep breath, Rin steeled himself for the challenges that lay ahead. The path forward was fraught with danger, but he was ready to face it head-on, confident in his abilities and unwavering in his determination. Cadet Rin stood before General Tarkus, his expression resolute as he received the details of his latest mission. The stakes had never been higher, and the young human knew that the success or failure of this critical operation would solidify his place within the elite ranks of the Alien Legion. Tarkus, his imposing presence casting a long shadow over the cadet, outlined the mission parameters with his usual no-nonsense tone. Rin listened intently, committing every detail to memory as he prepared himself mentally and physically for the challenges that lay ahead. "This mission will test the limits of your abilities, hatchling," the general rumbled, his piercing gaze fixed on the young cadet. "Succeed, and you will cement your position at my side. Fail, and—" Tarkus paused, his mandibles clicking ominously. "Well, I'm sure you can imagine the consequences." Rin swallowed hard, his heart pounding in his chest, but he refused to show any sign of trepidation. "I understand, sir," he replied, his voice steady and resolute. "I will not let you down." Tarkus regarded him for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then, slowly, a hint of a smile tugged at the corners of his mouth. "See that you don't, hatchling," he rumbled, before dismissing the cadet with a curt nod. As Rin made his way to the mission staging area, he could feel the weight of the other soldiers' gazes upon him. The whispers and murmurs that had once followed him had given way to a mix of awe and envy, as the news of his exploits had spread throughout the Legion. The young cadet knew that he had earned the respect of his fellow soldiers, but he also understood that their admiration was a double-edged sword. With power and influence came jealousy and resentment, and Rin was all too aware that he would need to be vigilant, lest his newfound status make him a target. Steeling himself, Rin boarded the small transport that would carry him to his destination, a remote outpost deep within enemy territory. As the craft lifted off, he gazed out the viewport, his mind racing with 1,000 thoughts and 1,000 possible outcomes. The mission itself was dangerous, fraught with risk and the ever-present threat of discovery. Rin would need to rely on his wits, his skills, and his ability to think quickly in the face of adversity. Failure was not an option, not when so much was at stake. As the transport touched down, Rin disembarked, his senses immediately on high alert. The outpost was eerily silent, the only sound the gentle hum of the craft's engines as it departed, leaving him alone in the vast alien landscape. Gripping his weapon tightly, the young cadet made his way towards the target, his movements a series of carefully calculated steps. He knew that the slightest misstep could mean the difference between success and failure, life and death. Time seemed to slow as Rin navigated the treacherous terrain, his eyes scanning the shadows for any sign of movement. The mission was progressing smoothly, and he could feel a growing sense of cautious optimism taking root in his chest. But just as Rin reached the target, a sudden movement in the corner of his eye sent his heart racing. He whirled, weapon at the ready, only to find himself face to face with a squad of enemy soldiers, their own weapons leveled at him. For a moment, the young cadet was frozen, his mind racing as he weighed his options. But then, with a surge of adrenaline, he sprang into action, his movements a blur as he engaged the enemy. Rin fought with a ferocity that belied his small stature, his years of rigorous training giving him the edge he needed to overcome the larger, more experienced soldiers. He dodged and weaved, his dagger flashing as he landed blow after blow, his opponents faltering under the onslaught. Finally, with a last, desperate effort, Rin managed to break free, his prize secure in his grasp. He ran, his lungs burning, the sound of pursuit echoing in his ears, But he refused to give up, his determination fueling his every step. As he reached the extraction point, Rin felt a surge of triumph, his heart pounding with a mix of exhilaration and relief. He had succeeded, against all odds, and he knew that this victory would only cement his place within Tarkus' elite legion. The young cadet stood tall, his gaze fixed on the horizon, his mind already turning to the next challenge that would undoubtedly await him. For in the world of Tarkus Legion, there was no time to rest on one's laurels, only the constant drive to prove one's worth, again and again. As word of Cadet Rin's daring mission and successful retrieval of the critical intelligence spread through the ranks of Tarkus Legion, the young human's reputation only continued to grow. The other soldiers, once wary of the small cadet, now regarded him with a mix of grudging respect and barely concealed envy. But not everyone in the Legion was pleased with Rin's meteoric rise within the ranks. Certain alien generals, envious of the human's newfound status and influence, began to whisper among themselves, plotting ways to undermine the young cadet's position. Chief among these plotters was General Xeron, a ruthless and ambitious warrior who had long been one of Tarkus' most trusted lieutenants. He had watched with growing unease as Rin's star continued to rise, and the thought of a mere human gaining such favor in the eyes of the revered commander filled him with a burning resentment. One day, as Rin was reviewing the intelligence he had gathered during his latest mission, he couldn't help but feel an unsettling sensation, as if he were being watched. Glancing up, he caught a glimpse of Xeron's piercing gaze, the alien general's expression unreadable. Rin tensed, his instincts telling him that something was amiss. He knew that Xeron had never fully trusted him, and the young cadet couldn't help but wonder if the general's newfound scrutiny was a harbinger of darker intentions. Deciding to tread cautiously, Rin made his way to Tarkus' private quarters, intent on informing the general of his concerns. As he approached the door, however, he paused, his sharp ears detecting the muffled sounds of voices in heated discussion. Rin hesitated, torn between his desire to report his suspicions and his reluctance to interrupt what was clearly a sensitive conversation. But as he strained to listen, a familiar name caught his attention, and he knew that he could no longer afford to remain on the sidelines. Steeling himself, the young cadet knocked firmly on the door, his heart pounding in his chest. After a moment, the door slid open, revealing Tarkus' imposing figure. "Cadet Rin," the general rumbled, his tone tinged with a hint of annoyance. This had better be important. Rin swallowed hard, his gaze meeting Tarkus, unflinchingly. "Sir, I believe there may be a plot against me within the Legion." The general's eyes narrowed, and for a moment, Rin feared that he had overstepped his bounds. But then, to the young cadet's surprise, Tarkus' expression softened, and he gestured for Rin to enter. "Speak," the general commanded, his deep voice commanding the young human's attention. Rin quickly recounted his concerns, describing the unsettling encounter with Xeron and the whispers of discontent he had heard among the other soldiers. As he spoke, he couldn't help but notice the subtle shift in Tarkus' demeanor, the general's brow furrowing in a thoughtful frown. "I see," Tarkus murmured, his mandibles clicking softly. "This is an unfortunate development." The young cadet watched the general carefully, his own apprehension growing with each passing moment. "Sir, what do you intend to do?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Tarkus fixed him with a piercing stare, his expression unreadable. "What I intend to do," he rumbled, "is to ensure that my legion remains strong and united, and that means dealing with any threats, no matter the source." Rin felt a chill run down his spine, the implication of the general's words not lost on him. He knew that Tarkus was a ruthless leader, one who would stop at nothing to maintain his power and influence. "Sir, I am loyal to you," Rin said, his voice trembling slightly. "I have no desire to undermine your authority or the unity of your legion." Tarkus regarded him for a long moment, his expression inscrutable. "I know, hatchling," he said finally, his tone softer than Rin had ever heard it. And that is why I trust you to handle this matter with the discretion and skill that I have come to expect from you." The young cadet felt a surge of relief, but he knew that the road ahead would be treacherous. Zirin and his co-conspirators were a formidable foe, and Rin would need to navigate the shifting alliances and hidden agendas of the Legion with the utmost care. As he left Tarkus' quarters, Rin's mind raced with the weight of his new responsibilities. The stakes had never been higher, and the dangers had never been more real. But the young cadet was determined to prevail, his loyalty to the general and his own ambitions driving him forward. Cadet Rin moved through the bustling corridors of the Alien Legion's headquarters, his senses on high alert. Ever since he had revealed his concerns about a potential plot against him to General Tarkus, the young human had been on edge, his mind racing with countless scenarios and potential outcomes. As he approached the training grounds, he couldn't help but feel the weight of the other soldiers' gazes upon him. The whispers and murmurs that had once followed him had only grown more pronounced, the underlying tension palpable. Rin knew that he needed to be vigilant, to watch for any signs of betrayal or treachery. Zirin and his co-conspirators were undoubtedly biding their time, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Suddenly, a commotion erupted from the training yards, the sounds of blaster fire and shouting echoing through the corridors. Rin's heart raced as he rushed towards the disturbance, his weapon drawn, and his senses on high alert. As he reached the training grounds, the young cadet was met with a chaotic scene. Scores of soldiers, locked in fierce combat, were exchanging blows and firing weapons in a desperate struggle. And at the center of it all stood Zirin, his cold, calculating gaze fixed on Rin. Well, if it isn't our human prodigy," the alien general sneered, his mandibles clicking in a menacing display. "I had a feeling you would show up, hatchling." Rin tensed, his grip tightening on his weapon as he surveyed the battlefield. "Zirin," he said, his voice steady and unwavering. "I should have known you were behind this." The alien general let out a harsh laugh, his expression twisted with disdain. "Behind this? My dear Rin, I am merely reclaiming what is rightfully mine. Tarkus has allowed your kind to infiltrate our ranks for far too long." Rin felt a surge of anger, his jaw clenching as he met Zirin's gaze. "Tarkus trusts me, Zirin. Your petty schemes will not succeed." Zirin's eyes narrowed, his lips curling into a cruel smile. "Oh, but they already have, human," he hissed. "Look around you. My allies have already begun to tear your precious legion apart." Rin's eyes widened as he took in the unfolding scene. The once disciplined soldiers were now engaged in a chaotic brawl, their weapons trained on one another as they fought for their loyalty. And in the midst of it all, Rin could see the distinct uniforms of Zirin's co-conspirators, their movements coordinated and ruthless. You've turned them against each other," Rin breathed, the realization dawning on him. Zirin nodded, his expression one of triumph. "Indeed, hatchling. And now it is time for you to face the consequences of your misguided allegiance to Tarkus." The alien general raised his weapon, his finger tightening on the trigger, but before he could fire, a thunderous roar echoed through the training grounds. Xeroen. The sound of Tarkus' voice, laced with fury, caused the combatants to freeze, their attention instantly drawn to the imposing figure of the general as he strode towards them, his eyes burning with rage. "What is the meaning of this?" Tarkus demanded, his gaze sweeping across the scene of chaos. Zirin faltered, his confidence momentarily shaken, but he quickly regained his composure. "Tarkus, my old friend," he said, his tone dripping with false sincerity. "We were merely discussing the delicate matter of this human's presence in our ranks." Tarkus' eyes narrowed, and for a moment, Rin feared that the general would side with Zirin. But then, to his surprise, Tarkus shifted his gaze to the young cadet, his expression softening ever so slightly. "Is this true, Rin?" the general rumbled, his voice low and dangerous. Rin straightened, his resolve steeled by Tarkus' unexpected gesture of trust. "No, sir," he replied, his voice clear and unwavering. Exeran and his allies have betrayed the Legion, and they seek to undermine my position at your side. Tarkus' mandibles clicked ominously, and for a heartbeat, the training grounds fell silent, the tension thick enough to be cut with a knife. Then, with a roar of fury, the general turned on Exeran, his massive frame surging forward like a tidal wave. The other soldiers, sensing the shift in the balance of power, quickly rallied to Tarkus' side, their weapons trained on Exeran and his co-conspirators. The battle that followed was fierce and brutal, a clash of titans as Tarkus and his loyal soldiers fought to quell the insurrection. Rin, his skills honed by countless hours of training, fought alongside the general, his dagger flashing as he cut down one enemy after another. In the end, Exeran and his allies were defeated, their ambitions crumbling in the face of Tarkus' wrath and Rin's unwavering loyalty. As the dust settled, the young cadet stood beside the general, his chest heaving, but his gaze filled with a newfound sense of purpose. Tarkus turned to him, his expression unreadable. "Rin," he rumbled, his deep voice tinged with a hint of respect. "You have proven your worth to me and to this Legion. From this day forward, you shall be known as my most trusted lieutenant." Rin felt a surge of pride and humility, his heart swelling with a mixture of emotions. He had come a long way, from a small, scrawny cadet to a respected and valued member of Tarkus' elite legion, and he knew that the challenges that lay ahead would only continue to test his abilities and his loyalty. But as he stood beside the general, his gaze fixed on the horizon, Rin knew that he was ready to face whatever the future had in store. In the aftermath of the failed coup, the relationship between General Tarkus and Cadet Rin had grown stronger than ever. The young human's unwavering loyalty and impressive combat skills had earned him the respect and trust of the formidable alien commander, solidifying his position as the general's most trusted lieutenant. As Tarkus surveyed the damage done by Exeran and his co-conspirators, his brow furrowed with a mix of anger and determination. The insurrection had been a blow to the unity and morale of his legion, and he knew that he would need to act swiftly and decisively to restore order and reaffirm his authority. Turning to Rin, the general regarded the young cadet with a thoughtful expression. "Hatchling," he rumbled, his deep voice commanding the attention of all who were present. "The time has come for us to take decisive action." Rin straightened, his gaze unwavering as he met Tarkus' piercing stare. "I am ready, sir," he replied, his voice steady and resolute. The general nodded, a hint of approval flickering in his eyes. "Good. We must act quickly to quell the unrest within the Legion and send a clear message to any who would dare to challenge our authority." Rin listened intently as Tarkus outlined his plan, his mind racing with the implications of the general's words. It was a bold and ambitious strategy, one that would require the coordination and cooperation of the Legion's most trusted soldiers. As the two leaders began to formulate their course of action, a growing sense of excitement and determination took hold of the young cadet. He knew that the stakes had never been higher, that the prospect of standing shoulder to shoulder with Tarkus, leading their combined forces to victory, filled him with a sense of purpose and anticipation. In the days that followed, the general and his lieutenant worked tirelessly, rallying the loyal soldiers and strategizing their next move. Rin's sharp tactical mind and keen insight proved invaluable, as he helped Tarkus identify and neutralize the remaining pockets of dissent within the Legion. The other soldiers, once wary of the human's presence, now regarded him with a newfound respect and admiration. They had witnessed his bravery and skill in the face of the Exeran's betrayal, and they knew that Rin's loyalty to Tarkus was unshakable. As the final preparations were made, Rin stood beside the general, their gazes fixed on the horizon. The air was thick with anticipation, the tension palpable as the Legion readied itself for the coming confrontation. "This is it, hatchling," Tarkus rumbled, his voice low and intense. "The moment we have been waiting for. Are you prepared to face whatever lies ahead?" Rin met the general's gaze, his expression unwavering. "I am, sir," he replied, his voice filled with conviction. "I will not fail you." Tarkus' mandibles clicked in what might have been a smile, and he placed a massive hand on Rin's shoulder, the gesture a rare display of affection from the normally stoic commander. "Then let us go, Rin," the general said, his tone filled with a newfound sense of purpose. "Together, we will show our enemies the true might of this legion." As the combined forces of Tarkus and Rin surged forward, the young cadet felt a surge of adrenaline coursing through his veins. He knew that the battle ahead would be fierce and unforgiving, but he was undaunted, his resolve steeled by the knowledge that he was fighting alongside a commander he had come to respect and admire. The clash that followed was a brutal and relentless display of power and skill, as Tarkus and his loyal soldiers faced off against the remaining pockets of Siren's forces. Rin fought with a ferocity that belied his small stature, his dagger flashing as he cut down one enemy after another, his movements a blur of precision and grace. Together, the general and his lieutenant led their legion to a decisive victory, their united front proving to be an unstoppable force. As the dust settled, Rin stood beside Tarkus, his chest heaving, but his gaze filled with a sense of pride and accomplishment. The young cadet knew that this was just the beginning, that the challenges they had faced were merely a prelude to the greater battles that lay ahead. But as he looked to the future, he felt a newfound confidence, his loyalty to Tarkus and his belief in the power of their alliance unwavering. In the end, it was this formidable partnership, forged in the heat of battle, that would shape the course of the war and cement the legacy of both Tarkus and Rin, a human and an alien united in their quest for victory.